Just days before the president's high-stakes summit with Xi Jinping, negotiators may have a breakthrough. Welcome to the Big Money Show, everyone. I'm Jackie DeAngelis, along with my co-hosts Lou Bassanese, Jerry Willis, Brian Brenberg, and with us for the hour, Fox and Friends weekend co-host Griff Jenkins. Hey. Great to see you. Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says the U.S. and China have reached a framework agreement to head off another round of 100% tariffs.
I believe that we have the framework for the two leaders to have a very productive meeting for both sides, and I think it will be fantastic for U.S. citizens, for U.S. farmers, and for our country in general.
But in true form, the president isn't easing up, and he continues to put pressure on Beijing. As part of his Asia tour, he's expected to sign new mineral supply deals across the region, a clear move to secure leverage ahead of that final agreement. Real deals, not diplomacy, not theater. This is pretty remarkable. So what we know so far, Griff, is that this framework includes provisions for fentanyl, for soybeans, for rare earths, and for TikTok. But also on the other side of that, you've got the, I'm calling it diversification as if it was a stock portfolio, the way he's working with Malaysia, Thailand, and Cambodia on the rare earths as well, to let Beijing know you are not the only show in town.
Well, look, let me back up a little bit, because when I heard Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent say, I'm a soybean farmer and I'm hurting, I thought, we got the right guy in the fight. He's going to try and get a deal. But at the end of the day, I mean, I think the fact that China really proved this month that they could, inflict pain on the U.S. with the rare earth mineral export controls, that clearly we need to get to a better place. And I was sort of going down a rabbit hole a little bit, Jackie, trying to say, what about, we make everything else great in America. Like, what about Western rare earth minerals? In the industry doesn't exist. So, we wonder now. Bessent was saying that he and Trade Representative Greer got the hard work done. Now it's just for the two leaders to do the deal. We know a lot can happen, but what we haven't seen is really what exactly is the devil in the detail when it comes to it, because it looks like we're going to get a year that China's going to say, well, we won't, exert these export controls for a year.
You'd be lucky if you get a year, I think.
But I mean, what's a year going to do? That doesn't give us time to stand up something that competes.
So you bring up a great point, and the president definitely wants to do what he can regarding rare earths here. There was that deal with the Canadian company to start doing some mining, Brian. But three countries that he's working with, and potentially China backing off a little bit, that might be enough runway to make some progress.
A little runway's good to start with, right? I mean, I think anytime you do a deal with China, they're duct tape deals. They're not going to last very long. Maybe with Trump, you get one that lasts 3 years until he leaves office. But we saw what happened when he left office and Biden came in. China said, forget about it. So we got some duct tape here. Markets like the duct tape. But here's the headline, Griff, in the Wall Street Journal. America's hottest new investment, rare earth companies. A cascade of billion-dollar deals is reshaping the once dormant. So what you got here is you got a duct tape deal to give us a little runway. But I think the message is clear. When it comes to soybeans, agriculture, we got to find different markets. We can't rely on China. Rare earths, there is no way we can rely on China. They've already told us that. We need our own deal. Pharmaceuticals, the same thing. We've got to make moves away from the table. Whether you want to talk about de-risking or decoupling, the fact is on these key things, there is only one thing you can do, decouple with China as long as they're communist. And I think that's what the president's doing.
It's a pretty harsh stance. I just want to ask Jerry about soybeans, because in Trump 1.0, first term, he had COVID to deal with. He had a lot of issues that made it very chaotic as he was exiting. And so that was one of the reasons that I thought it was most difficult to hold China's feet to the fire. And then, of course, Brian, you brought up the fact that Biden came in and wasn't going to enforce the deal made on soybeans either. But now with 3 years left in his presidency, if he holds their feet to the fire consistently that long, that might be something that goes into perpetuity because the stage has been properly set and cemented.
I hope you're right, from your lips to the trade god's ears, I guess. I wanted to comment on the story that was just brought up here about rare earths in the U.S. of A. becoming a thing, and I'm going to cough and I apologize. That's what happens in a free economy, right? People see the need, they try to fill the need. That's the beauty of our economy. If we have a situation where we can't come to terms with China on something, well, the private sector is going to find a way to fill the void.
Yeah.
And I think that's the beauty of that. The other thing I wanted to say about, I hope Besson is right here. We've been down this road before where they've said we're very close to an agreement and then not really, right? Remember that? It's not been that long ago. But for individual investors, an agreement is very good news. This is going to be good for your 401k in the short term, maybe just the 3 years, maybe just a year. It's good news for individual investors, people who want to retire.
Markets like it today. I'm looking at a NASDAQ that's up 373 points. That's 1.6%. Green across the screen. I looked at the futures last night to see what the expectation was going to be, and it was very positive. But Lou, two things we haven't touched on at the desk yet. TikTok as a potential deal. That is something that Beijing seemingly is throwing us, because that's what the president wanted. And also his fight on fentanyl.
Listen, fentanyl is deeply personal to me. I lost a brother and a cousin to fentanyl overdoses, so I think this is a huge, huge position to stake claim to end it, right? We're shipping it to Mexico, then Mexico across the border, right? TikTok, I think TikTok's going to linger. I don't know that this comes together on this deal because you're trying to fight over equity ownership of an algorithm, that there's too much at stake there. I think the trade deal is more important. Rare earths, back to Brian and Griff's point here, timing every minute matters. I met with the CEO of the largest tungsten deposit in Nevada last week. They're raising funds to come public, and they're not going to be online with that tungsten deposit until best case scenario 2028. So 1 year delay does not provide us all the wiggle room that we need to actually be independent. But I said, every minute matters, and I think the president's making the right steps. Secure supply from other countries, show China we don't need you, and step into that, right? So I think the market's here. It's always a freak out Friday. There's a very definitive script here. Freak out on Friday, things are falling apart, and then by Monday there's a miracle and it's coming back together. And I think investors are getting trained to expect this, right? So we know there's deadlines, they're going to get met.
Can I bring up one thing? Oral arguments are set to start in the Supreme Court case over President Trump's trade negotiations in general, how he's gone about it using IEEPA. So Griff, he is hustling to get this done with China. That's potentially the biggest one. It always has been from the beginning. By Thursday is when they're supposed to meet. So what does that do to a court ruling, if anything? Does it, if he cements something with President Xi and the Supreme Court goes against him, does it negate what's happened?
Well, that's a great question, Jackie, and that one I can answer. But what we have seen is when the courts particularly have gone after his executive power, tariffs are a legit executive power, and it just hasn't been used to this level. And so my initial answer would be that I'm not sure it does affect it, but it doesn't mean that the courts wouldn't attempt to possibly impact it. And I think, honestly, the more we have seen it, from whether it is tariffs and trade to deportations and any number of things, pretty soon I'm sure someone will file a lawsuit that he can't blow up the East Wing, which has already been demolished.
Yeah, right?
I think that these court cases this is largely going to be played out well into the term, if not decided after he's already left office. But I don't know. I couldn't give you a good answer on that.
Okay.
Can I add to that one?
Well, I wanted to ask you because we don't know what he's going to do, and I'm not speculating on what the Supreme Court is going to do with respect to him, but you and I have discussed the fact that he's got options. So if for some reason the case doesn't go the way he wants it to, a nice deal is inked with China and some of these other countries, he will just go back and use the other tools at his disposal, do the hefty lift of the paperwork to be able to then get it done.
And he started it last week. We talked last week about them opening a 301 trade investigation. So they want to win the IEEPA case at the Supreme Court. I think they know there's a good chance they might not win it its entirety. But what they said to Xi last week is, we've got all sorts of other investigations. We're opening them now. If we lose that tariff power, we will use a different power. We're not giving up. So I think both sides come to the table knowing there's a lot of, the U.S. is not backing down on the leverage.
So then it is important to ink this deal, which is hence why the hustle, because he feels like regardless of what the court does, I'm going to move forward with this anyway. So the faster I can do these deals, please the market, tell everybody at home that things are coming together, that's just good for America.
I think the president always wants speed. He likes to get things done now and move ahead, and I think that's what he's doing.
He keeps creating a sense of urgency, which, if you think back, right, all these things weren't getting done because no one was creating any urgency. I think now with the government shutdown, he's creating urgency for the Democrats really to come to the table, and he can wait it out. During his first term, he waited 31 days of a government shutdown. So he knows he has the leverage. I think he's trying to maximize that, and he's doing it here with China.
You know, Lou, that's a great point. If I can just add to, we have seen on any number of issues that the 4 years off really gave President Trump time to think about what he wanted to do. And he has hit the ground and moved so fast and so swift that on every front that he wanted to have an impact, not border, trade, all of these things, he has a plan. And I think that's really caught, you know, the general status quo Washington off guard because they're not used to doing it this way. And now, again, bringing the ballroom up again, he's doing it on the ballroom, so much so that the Washington Post on Friday had an editorial that was backing the ballroom and applauding the just busting through red tape.
And
Hell
just
has
as a sign
frozen
of the
over.
time. No, they were saying it's a sign of the times. We do need to be evolving. Oh, and by the way, taxpayer dollars are not going to fund this renovation.
Right, not a
and
single-
everyone will be able to use it going forward. So they were saying, what's wrong with that?
Not a single penny. In the Post, in their editorial, highlighted that in 2014 we had a very dangerous fence jumper at the White House, and it raised, like, everybody agreed, we've got to do construction to make the fence more secure. Well, that went to the National Capital Planning Commission, which argued over it, and construction didn't start until 2019. It took 5 years to update the fence outside the White House. That's why you've seen President Trump going, yeah, we're doing this, not a single taxpayer dollar, get the crane, start demolishing tomorrow.
All right, on that note, let's take a look at shares of Lululemon today. The company partnering with the NFL to launch its first ever line of officially licensed apparel and accessories for all 32 teams. It's going to feature both men's and women's apparel and accessories. It's going to drop tomorrow. The move follows its push into the NHL last year. And Lou, I think this is important for a company like Lululemon. There is so much competition out there in that space. There was a time when they were the only show in town, and that is no longer. So I feel like they need to kind of revive what they're doing.
I would agree with that because we're talking about premium yoga pants and leisure wear, which used to be dominated by Nike and then by Under Armour. So I think this is a very smart move because there's a lot of loyalty with different sports, and if you can move into that realm, you're going to see people pick that up. Even maybe I've seen a little reluctance at Brian whether he might wear Lululemon. I mean, kind of a look.
I happen to have a pair of those that I do wear on set, but we're talking about yoga pants in football.
What?
Can we just stop for a
They already
second?
wear yoga pants. That's the uniform.
I'm
It's
here
apparel.
for this.
The memory of like 1970s Vikings and Steelers, those guys getting into the yoga pants.
I didn't say I was going to be a buyer.
The NFL has changed in some
They wear
troubling
tights.
ways, in my
They
view.
wear tights, and a lot of them wear pink cleats for breast cancer awareness.
I love that.
I love that's great. I don't think they wear tights.
They
though.
do.
I wouldn't call them tights.
What are they?
They're not tights.
They're tights.
Football pants.
to circle
They're
back to
football
Lulu,
pants.
though, to circle back to Lululemon.
Potato.
Maybe Lululemon will start making jerseys as well. I mean, look, full disclosure, I wear Lululemon almost every day because SoulCycle, the cycling company that I ride, Lululemon is a lot
Their
of their
apparel,
apparel, and so I have a lot of it. Now,
You're one
Point-
Taylor Swift reference away.
Here we go, Taylor.
Griff,
Bring it
don't
on.
push your luck
Point
right
of
now.
clarification, Brian does not wear the tights. He wears like the trouser golf pants.
Yeah,
Am
they're
I
very
accurate in that
trouser.
assessment?
Definitely
They're
not
trouser.
tights. Thank you for that.
I just wanted everyone to,
clarification.
you know,
No yoga pants.
we care about the details.
I don't own any of it yet, so I'm the standout.